saw her, it was raining. Not the kind of soft, harmless drizzle that kisses the streets, but the kind that feels personal, heavy, endless. She stood there without an umbrella, her white dress clinging to her like memory, her hair plastered to her face, and her eyes fixed on the nothingness ahead. Around her, the world moved with hurried steps and umbrellas raised high. But she stood still, calm, almost detached, like a ghost that had forgotten it no longer belonged here. Arlen sat inside the small cafe across the street, pretending to read, but he wasn't reading. He was watching her. There was something about the way she lifted her head to the sky, as if she wanted the rain to wash something away, a secret, sin, or maybe just pain that had been hiding too long. Before she left, she picked a single red flower from a broken pot by the cafe window and tucked it into her soaked hair. That one image stayed with him, carved deep into his mind like a scene from a dream you never quite wake up from. 2 days later, the rain returned, and so did she. Same cafe, same window, same storm. Except this time, she looked directly at him, froze. Her stare wasn't soft. It was the kind that searches you, like she'd known him long before that day. When she finally spoke, her voice carried both calm and chaos. "Do you ever feel," she said, "like the rain remembers you?" Arlen blinked, unsure how to answer. "I think it forgets everyone," he replied with a half smile. She shook her head, water droplets tracing her jawline. "Not everyone." That's how it began, quietly, strangely. Like a whisper that sneaks into your life before you realize it's already too late to stop listening. Her name was Alara, and she said it like she wasn't sure it belonged to her, as if someone else had once used it, and she'd simply borrowed it for now. They met again the next day, and the next. The cafe became their world, small, dim, and safe from everything outside. She painted, he wrote. Sometimes they spoke for hours. Other times they said nothing at all. Silence with her didn't feel empty. It felt like language. She told him she painted faces she couldn't forget. He told her he'd never found a reason to be remembered. By the time the rain finally stopped, they were laughing like they'd been friends forever. Maybe like they were trying to forget they were ever strangers. But Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that behind her laugh lived a story, one full of sharp edges and unsaid things. Sometimes when she thought he wasn't looking, she'd stop painting and stare at a blank canvas for minutes, her hands trembling slightly. When he asked what was wrong, she'd just say, "Some faces don't want to be remembered." Weeks passed. The world outside their little cafe changed. Clearer skies, louder streets, but their world stayed suspended in something softer. She invited him to her studio one evening, an old attic at the edge of town. The air smelled of turpentine, candle wax, and something heavier, like sadness disguised as art. The walls were covered with portraits, all turned backward. "Why hide them?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Some things look back when you stare too long." It was the kind of answer that didn't explain anything but somehow made perfect sense coming from her. He helped her clean brushes, mixed paint, read her words when she forgot how to speak them. Sometimes she painted him. Other times she painted things he couldn't see, hands reaching through rain, eyes without faces, doors without rooms. When he asked who they were, she'd always say, "People who never leave." He fell in love slowly, not with her beauty, but with her silence. There was something holy in the way she existed, like every breath she took was borrowed from a world that no longer wanted her. And yet she smiled. She smiled like someone who had already seen the end and decided to dance anyway. He never told her he loved her. He didn't need to. She already knew. Some nights, when thunder rolled outside and the attic trembled, she'd press her head against his chest and whisper, "Promise me you won't disappear when the rain stops." He never answered. Because deep down, he knew some storms don't end. They just move inside you, and so they lived like that between laughter and lightning, between art and silence. Until one morning, Arlen went to the cafe, and she wasn't there. The chair she always sat in was empty, her cup untouched, her red flower gone. He waited through the afternoon rain, through the sunset, through the night. She never came. The next day, he climbed up to her attic. The door was open. The window shattered, and every single painting was turned to face outward. And there, on the largest canvas, beneath layers of smeared color, he saw at her face. But not smiling, not calm. Just rain falling over her eyes, forever frozen in that moment he first saw her. For weeks after Alara vanished, Arlen lived like a ghost inside his own body. The city went on breathing. People laughed, buses roared, and cafes filled, but for him, everything had stopped the moment she disappeared. He returned to that attic every night, staring at her paintings like they might speak if he waited long enough. The portraits still hung there, silent witnesses to something he couldn't name. He tried to paint over her last words, "You promised," but no matter how many colors he used, the red bled through. It always came back. Like her, the owner of the building said no one had lived in that attic for years. "You must be mistaken," the old man had said, squinting through the fogged glass door. "That room's been locked since the fire in 2019. A girl died there." Arlen's heart cracked like thin ice. "Her name?" he asked, his throat tight. The man frowned, thinking. Elaine Ilara. Something like that. That night, the rain came back. Heavy, merciless, alive. Arlen didn't go home. He walked through the storm to the cafe, dripping and shaking, staring through the same glass where he had first seen her months ago. Inside, everything looked the same. The same lamp flickered, the same song hummed softly through the speakers. But at her table, her chair, there was a red flower, fresh and glistening with rainwater. He froze, his mind screamed impossible. Slowly, he reached for it. The petals were cold. Too cold. And then, as he lifted it, he heard her voice, faint, trembling. Carried on the rain outside. "Do you still think the rain forgets everyone?" He turned sharply. She stood outside, across the street, exactly as she had that first day. Hair soaked, dress white, eyes endless. She smiled, that same half-smile that never quite reached her eyes. Without thinking, he ran into the rain, shouting her name. But when he reached the spot where she stood, there was no one. Only the flower remained, floating in the puddle at his feet. After that night, something inside him began to unravel. He started seeing her everywhere, reflections, mirrors, windows. Sometimes he'd wake to the sound of her humming from another room. Once he found fresh footprints leading from his door to the attic. He followed them, trembling, heart pounding, and there she was, sitting by the window, painting. She didn't look at him, just kept brushing color onto the canvas. He whispered her name. She stopped, slowly turning toward him. Her face was pale, eyes dark, lips trembling. "You left me in the rain," she said. "You said you wouldn't." He tried to speak, but his throat felt frozen. "Alara, you promised." Her voice cracked, not angry, but wounded, echoing like thunder from inside the walls. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. The portraits around the room began to turn slowly, one by one, until every face stared at him. Dozens of eyes, hollow and wet. She stepped closer, paint dripping from her fingers like blood. "They all promised to," she whispered, "and they all forgot." When he blinked, she was gone again. Only the wet footprints remained, leading to the window ending there. He ran to it and saw nothing but rain and the dark city below. For days he couldn't sleep. The attic called to him like a wound that refused to close. He began to lose time, hours disappearing, days melting into nights. Once he woke up to find a canvas in front of him, his own portrait this time, half finished. On the table beside it was a red flower. By the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. The boundary between her world and his had blurred. He could no longer tell if he was dreaming her or if she was dreaming him. One night, he found a letter tucked beneath the broken easel, written in her handwriting, the one he'd memorized from her sketches. "You never really saw me. Arlen, you saw what you needed to believe in, a storm with a face. I waited for you to look past the rain, but you never did. Now you will." The next morning, his neighbors found his apartment door open. The window shattered. No sign of struggle, no blood. Only a single painting resting on the wall, Ilara standing beneath the rain, and beside her, Arlen holding her hand, both smiling. both colorless. Weeks later, the cafe closed down. People said it had become haunted, that on rainy days, you could still see two figures sitting by the window, one reading, one painting. And sometimes when thunder rolled through the city, a voice would echo faintly through the storm. Do you still think the rain forgets everyone? But the rain never answered.